Good afternoon and welcome to Preparing for Prosperity. I am AJ Harrison. Today is Thursday, May 25th, 2023, and I'm coming to you a little late today in the afternoon. Had a couple family things come up today, and my wife had some stuff to do, so it was daddy daycare day today with the 2.5-year-old. So super fun time. Got some stuff accomplished, but I'm just now getting around to recording this podcast at about 4:30 in the afternoon. So we'll go ahead and dive right in. So on Tuesday, we talked a lot about the Exit and Build conference, and today we're gonna talk about one of the key things that I kind of picked up on while I was there, and had some pretty good conversations about, and that's failing forward. And what that basically amounts to is you're never going to get anywhere, especially with new things, unless you try. And if you try and fail and learn from it, you fail forward. You take that and you learn, and you take that with you onto the next step. So I have been going along a self-employment journey and a side hustle journey since like 14 and a half, 15 years old. Started with selling firewood. A friend of mine that I was on the fire department with, and we would go up in the woods, and we would take a 8-foot bed F-150 half-ton pickup, and we would drive all the way up in the woods and take a couple chainsaws. I had my dad's chainsaw, he had his dad's chainsaw, and we would cut about a half a cord to 3/4 of a cord of wood and drive all the way down and deliver it. And we did that for about a winter, and then the next spring I got super ambitious, and I was working after school and on the weekends at the tire store, so I had some income coming in, and I started trying to figure out how to be industrious and how I could make more money with it. And we went from cutting down trees and then bucking those trees into logs up where the tree fell, typically above the road. And we would limb the tree up, and then we would cut it into about 6-foot chunks and pick those trees up and toss them down the hill end over end to the bottom of the truck. Super, super inefficient and super tiring. But that's how we did it to start. By the next spring, I had found a place in town that actually dealt with loggers, and started buying firewood chokers and adding to the arsenal of stuff that we had. Still using our dad's chainsaws that we were borrowing with permission, and did that for a couple years on the side, and all the way up through when I got married at 19, and ended up actually I got married at 18, but ended up doing that through the first couple years of being married as well. The friend of mine that I was cutting firewood with, I was no longer cutting firewood with him, just because I don't think he had a whole lot of, if I remember right, he didn't really have a whole lot of desire to keep going with it. And he's a couple years older than me, so he was kind of moving into, real life. And so I was cutting firewood by myself, and I was using a Chevy Tahoe with a 16-foot car hauler behind it to go up and cut firewood and load it onto there and go deliver it. And when I was 19, I bought my first 1-ton. It was a 88 Chevy 1-ton, the crew cab, and I cut firewood with that for about a year. And then when I found one that was a reasonable price, actually it was off of a fire truck. I bought a flatbed for it. So then I was able to cut 2 cords of wood. And I cut firewood for a couple years, working full time, going in early, working on days off. If I had a 9 o'clock shift, I'd be on the mountain at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, cut a whole load of firewood, get it loaded up, and drive down down the mountain a half an hour to get to my job at the tire store. And then when I got home that night, come in, kiss the baby, hug the wife, maybe eat some dinner, and then go out and start offloading it. And I sold well over 100 cord of firewood for the first few winters that we lived in our house that we bought when I was 19. And so, from there I progressed into, I bought a tractor and started utilizing that same business name. I bought a tractor and I started renting out my little 26 horsepower Kubota tractor with a backhoe on it to folks for daily rentals. I was hiring it out. I essentially bought the tractor at 0% interest. I had just under $400 a month payment on it. And I was generating enough cash flow working it without paying myself a wage, working it part-time and renting it out to more than cover the cost of the payment throughout the year. And I did that until it was paid off. It was about 6 months prior to it being paid off that before the 60 months that I actually paid it off. So that tractor literally that we have is at this point in time $0 out of pocket, and it has been a phenomenal asset in just life on our acre and in what we do and supplemental income. And I have a 6-foot snowplow for the front of it. When I was working at the tire store, and it was wintertime and I wasn't cutting firewood anymore, I was using that tractor to plow the parking lot at the store to make additional income. I was spending the same amount of money to drive into town, get into town about an hour and a half earlier, use the tractor, plow the lot, make an extra $60 that day. The little things make a huge difference. The side hustles it's amazing how much you can bring in with just a little bit of effort with a side hustle. So I've had full-time jobs here and there and everywhere. My family and I manufactured hard cast bullets for reloaders. That was a laborious time. Lead is heavy. Lead is bulky. Lead's a lot of work, but I did that for, I don't know, it was probably 3 years, almost full time. And then, I started my construction company where we did paint work. I've had so many small side hustles that have turned into full-time that life has caused to not be full-time anymore, between getting divorced, getting remarried, issues in my personal life. But it's always been that entrepreneurial spirit has always been there. And it's always resonated with me. I've never felt like I was meant to hold a full-time job. So I've got a lot of experience with starting small side hustles and small businesses and running them and being profitable and providing for my family with them. And none of them have really took and stuck as like the thing that I was going to stick with. And I have a feeling that thing is out there. I'm hopeful that it's the next project. And the next project is already in progress. I'm just trying to line out a few more details on it before we go public with it. But I've never, I'll just tell you right now, I've never made 6 figures. Not being self-employed, not working a W-2 job, and having a side hustle. It's just never been there. But I have also always, since my first W-2 and my first year of having to file a tax return, I have always had self-employment on my taxes, which has lowered my taxable income. And that's a huge thing that you have to keep in mind with how much you're making on things. And we'll get into that later. So anyway, that's a brief history, a brief stroll down memory lane, to just kind of show you a little bit of where I'm at. I've been there. I've done these things. I'm hoping that the next venture is one of the ones that goes bigger, but we'll see. I've habitually and continually been failing forward throughout all my endeavors. So, where does that put us now? I want to encourage you, no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, no matter where you're at, whether it's where you're at in life, where you're at regionally, locationally, if you haven't ever had a side hustle, you really need one. And you might be knocking down six figures. You might have more than enough to live off of. But it's just, it's a frame of mind. It's a different way of thinking. It's a whole different way to bring a different level of prosperity into your life. And I'm not saying that you need to leave your job. I'm not saying that your side hustle even needs to really more than justify the time that that you put into it. If you're making $100 an hour, and you have a $25 or a $30 an hour side hustle, you may think, well, that's not cost effective to do that. But some of the other implications, as well as the mindset, definitely make it worthwhile to do that, because it will change the way you think. It'll change the way you operate. It'll change the way you act. It'll change the way you handle finances and every other aspect of life. So what's side hustle? What should you do? Well, what do you already do that you can monetize? Again, I'm not saying that this has to be like an epic, income generation, or even something that has to grow legs and last 6 months. Do you enjoy mowing a lawn? Do you enjoy mowing the lawn and weeding and doing the lawn side of maintenance? Do you have a house where you actually have your own lawn equipment? Do you get relaxation out of it? Would you enjoy mowing one or two or three other lawns a week? Listening to a podcast or music and just kind of being out there. A lot of people can't have a garden where they're at, or don't really want to have a garden. And that's perfectly fine, but everybody should be outside and doing things and absorbing vitamin D, breathing fresh air, even if you're in a city, fresh air, quote unquote, and just being not sedentary and not on the couch. And you may think, well, if sitting on a lawnmower is not that much work, but you're still using your brain to do something different. That's going to unlock your brain to process things that it may be locked up on. It's a great way to find clarity, by doing something completely out of the box to where your brain has to focus on it. Your subconscious can process the thing that it's having a hard time processing. So do you like mowing the lawn? You could make, if you picked up 3 lawns a week, you could probably make an extra $150 a week with very little fuel. If you've got a riding lawnmower, and no trailer, you're obviously not going to go a long distance. But even if you have a pickup truck and you have a push mower, you can get on Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace, and I'm sure there's several others, but those are the two that I kind of stick to. Be on the local community groups. And there's always people looking for someone to mow their lawn, whether it's every week, every other week. I've been out of town, or I'm going out of town and I need somebody to mow my lawn, something like that. That's a side hustle that could bring in some extra income. Do you make jewelry? Do you, maybe you're already working along your homesteading dreams, and you're still in an apartment, but you're starting to make your own soap, or your own essential oil, stuff that uses essential oils or something like that. You could easily take something that you're already making and find a market for it. When you're around friends, give them some samples. Hey, do you want to try this? Hey, by the way, I sell this. It's awkward. It feels weird if you've never been in sales before to actually ask somebody if they're interested in purchasing a product. And no is one of the hardest words to hear. It's the hardest syllable to hear. But there's so much to gain from being told no. I don't always do this, but I typically look forward to being told no, because that makes my brain process, how do I do something differently? How can I turn that no into a yes? It's a challenge. It's it just, like I said before, and I'll keep saying it, it's just a mindset thing. It causes so much emotionally, mentally, physiologically, that there's nothing much like it. So there's something that everybody does that can be monetized. It's just, what does building that revenue stream and that marketing stream look like? And not every hobby is or should be monetized. But that's the easiest way to start. And like I said, if you can bring in, even to start with, if your first side hustle, you were able to basically just cover the cost of what you're making, it's going to teach you, say soaps, it's going to cause you to, one, do more digging on information on how to learn how to do the things. Two, you're going to be looking at other suppliers from what you have. How can you manage costs? Three, it's going to make you think a lot more fiscally about profits and losses and really tracking things. It's going to teach you the value of your own time, because a lot of people with their hobbies and stuff, they look at it and they go, well, this is cool. I like to do this thing and I save some money doing it. Well, how much do you save doing it? Well, I don't know, but I don't have to buy it from the store. Well, okay. You have this $25 product. If you go buy it, what's it cost you to make it? Well, I don't know. Well, how long does it take you to make it? Somewhere between 4 and 5 or 6 hours, but I don't really know. Okay, well, let's really process and think about things, because oftentimes we do things thinking that we're going to save money. And I'm not saying that's from a poverty mindset. But what I am saying is it's really easy to put a lot of effort into something that you think is saving you money, and it's actually costing you 5 or even 10-fold by the time you count in the wasted time, the wasted labor, the cost of materials, all that kind of stuff. So even if you never make money on something, it's going to cause you to look at how much things cost in reality. And it's also going to teach you to respect your time. And it's also going to teach you how to value your time. And you might find that by doing side hustles, you find that your time is worth more than what you're getting paid for at your current job. And doing a side hustle may lead you to either challenge your boss for a raise, or to take that step into going from the position and the career that you're in and moving up in the world. Maybe that's going to a different company. Maybe that's going out on your own. Maybe that's, just going to your boss and saying, hey, it's been a long time since I've been a raise, and cost of living's going up, and I really feel like I'm going to need a raise, or we're going to have a different conversation. And, that just opens your whole world up. So think of what you already do. Try to figure out how you're going to monetize it. My wife right now is looking at a litany of things that she wants to do for her side hustle. And as her spouse, as the breadwinner for the household, I'm not looking for her to, really be bringing in a bunch of money. I'm looking at her to do all the other things, to challenge her with the thought processes, to think about the time and cost and labor that goes into things, just to become more of a well-rounded person. So, you have your idea. What's the next step? Well, the first part of the next step is, do not go into debt to start a side hustle. Do not put a bunch of stuff on a credit card. Don't have this idea that you've never done before. Say, making soap out of tallow. I'm gonna make soap and I'm gonna sell it, and that's gonna be my side hustle. Start small. What's the cheapest way you can get into it? It might be some kit off of Etsy that is all inclusive and has instructions, and there's already lye in the tallow, so you don't have to screw with that, and all these other things. There's you're never going to make money off of something like that. You're never going to take a pre-made kit and finish that kit and sell that product for a profit, because that kit is going to cost you more than sourcing that product from somewhere else. If that kit's going to make you 8 bars of soap, you can find a better deal on 10 bars of soap somewhere else of similar quality. I guarantee it. But that's not the point of it. The point is to learn and to make a very small investment into learning a process, into figuring something out. Because you might make that first batch and go, screw this, I don't have any, this sucks, this isn't fun. I don't even want to finish this batch. And at that point, you're out $50 versus, I don't know, several $1,000s. And honestly, I don't even know what all it takes to make soap because I've never really had an interest in that. You know, and that's another thing is when you're thinking about your ideas, just because it's something that interests you doesn't mean it's something that interests everybody. And what I mean is the act of doing something. So, for instance, you know, there's we live in Montana. The new farm food law that just went through last year says that we can sell home canned foods, as long as they're high acid, and there's a couple other things or jams and jellies and stuff like that. No permitting, no health licensing, nothing up to, I believe, $10,000 of one product type. Same thing with on-farm slaughter. We can raise chickens and process those chickens and then sell them direct to consumer, not through restaurants, but we can do that direct to consumer without any sort of licensure, up to like 10,000 birds or $10,000. That's something that we're not actively pursuing, so I don't know exactly what it is. But just because raising meat chickens to sell interests you doesn't mean it interests many other people. Same thing with making soap. Lots of people love a goat milk soap or a tallow soap, or, you know, a lot of these types of soaps and stuff that are readily available in the homesteading and regenerative type communities. Very few people are like, I'm going to make soap. I'm going to take the time and invest in the materials, invest in, you know, whatever I need to do this, and the time to make a few bars of soap, because their time's better spent picking weeds in their garden and or preserving or whatever. So, you know, you don't need to take out a loan or spend money that you don't have to do this. Find the least expensive way to get into it and start, especially if it's your first side hustle. Now, the more side hustles you have, the longer you get into the journey, the more experience you have in being self-employed, the bigger risks you can take. And that just depends on your personal financial situation and your personal and familiar risk aversion, which means you might be like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to drop $10,000 and buy this, and this, and we're going to do this. And your wife might be like, whoa, that's the emergency fund. Don't do that. So you have to manage your risk aversion as a unit. So if you're single and you don't have any kids or whatever, I mean, your money's your money. But I strongly advise, whether you're the breadwinner, whether you're the stay-at-home, whether you're anything, you got to be on board with your finances. And that's with every aspect of finances, but especially when you're doing this, because you shouldn't invest a penny more into a side hustle than you wouldn't be willing to take to Vegas and throw down on a table and gamble it away. Because that's what you're doing, is you're gambling. There's a way better risk reward ratio depending on what your side hustle is with that money, but still you're gambling that money. That money could go away. You could invest $2,000 into making tallow soap and these essential oils and this pot to process it in and all of these different molds and this special oatmeal to add to it and all these other things, and decide this sucks. And then you might be able to find somebody local that's interested in it and wanting to buy it. But I guarantee you 1,000%, if you spend $1,000 on stuff to make soap with and you decide you don't want to do it and you happen to find somebody that's interested in buying it, you're going to be lucky, absolutely lucky, to get 50 cents on the dollar. You're going to be more apt to get 25 cents to 10 cents on the dollar for that stuff. And you're going to get more out of it by parting and piecing it out. But then now, instead of having this side hustle where you're making soap, you now have the side hustle of trying to make your money back by dealing with 55 different people on Marketplace, because you're trying to sell these onesie twosie things to get out of it and recoup your investment. what little you can. So don't don't go into debt. Make sure that's going to cash flow. Now, if it's something you're gonna buy already and anyway, is the only caveat to that. I'm not big on debt. Personally, I'm a little bit more lenient in my philosophy when it comes to debt, when it comes to an asset. And my wife and I are on board with every financial situation that we do. I don't go invest in a business. I don't buy new equipment or, spend. We have a threshold of about $300. Anything over that, no matter whether it's a business or personally, we have that conversation beforehand. Now, we own a catering company, and I have a dinner in June, at the end of June, for about 180 people, and I'm going to spend about $4,000 on different food items for that very, very big and high dollar banquet. We're not going to have that conversation beforehand because I have an invoice already out there for that meal. That money's coming in. That goes into COGS. That's cost of goods. That's allocated to a specific event. So that conversation doesn't happen. But I mean, even as much as to I wanted to buy extra salad plates to bolster up our salad plates so that we had all of the same type of matching salad plate. And it was about $600 to get to where we needed to be, because China's expensive. We had that conversation before I ordered it. Now, I needed it for the business. I didn't have anything coming up where I was like, I need this now, but I knew that I had stuff in the future for that. So we had the conversation. We figured out when we wanted to spend that financial capital on that asset that will provide for us in the future, and go from there. But you've got to have all this to get back to a roundabout case. You've got to be on the same financial foundation with your spouse, with your significant other, with the person that you are financially involved with, and even if you are two people that are engaged and your finances are still separate, which they should be if you're not married, but that's a conversation for a different day. Even if there's a ring on the finger and you're moving forward with the financial future and a future in general together, you should still be having those conversations. Because your significant other, that's going to be your spouse, is walking down this road with you, and then expecting one thing, and then you go take out $10,000 in debt for something. That's a whole big wrench in the situation. That's now something that you both are going to have to work towards. That's going to be weighing on you. No matter how much it does, whether it's a little bit, or whether, you are of the mindset that the borrower is slave to the lender, and it weighs heavy on you. And debt weighs heavy on me. It just does. It always has. I'm the kind of guy that I pay cash for stuff, as much as possible. That being said, we have used some debt, especially with the catering business, to get to where we are, but my wife and I were on the same page with that. We knew exactly what we were getting into. I have a history of being self-employed. So don't go into debt for it. And for the love of all things good and holy, don't pull money out of retirement to fund a startup. The tax implications of pulling money, especially if you're not, if you're 70, and wanting to do a side hustle or small business, and you're going to pull money out of your IRA, I doubt you're listening to me. You quit listening at the beginning when a 30-something-year-old started talking about how you should spend your money. But if you're in the situation where you are too young to pull out without the extreme tax consequences from an IRA, you should definitely not be touching that money. But you surely should not be putting that money into something like a side hustle or a small business. Now, the caveat to that I touched on and would like to touch on a little bit more. When I bought my tractor in 2010, I bought that at 0% interest for 60 months with a $375.17 payment, 100% financed. I bought that because I wanted it for around the house and I had other uses for it. Now, I knew that I was going to channel money into making the payments on that from utilizing it for side hustle work, from renting it out, from hiring it out, from all the things that I've done with, that I have done and continue to do with it. So I took on debt for that, but it's not debt that I wasn't already planning on taking on to have the tractor at my house, at my homestead, to be able to do the things that we wanted to do. So I was buying that tractor anyway. I just figured out how to monetize that purchase, monetize that, monthly payment and the depreciation and all the things that go into it. So that would be my only time where I would say, yeah, you could look at doing that, but you better make sure that that's not a purchase that you're making just for the side hustle. Like when I was working for the propane company last winter, I had it in my head that I was going to buy a mini excavator this year. And part of the way I was going to pay for it was when I was out doing propane installs and site checks and everything, you have to bury the propane line that goes from the tank to the house. And the company that I was working for, as most, don't do that. They don't do any sort of excavation work, any sort of in the ground work. So they always recommend hiring somebody, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, well, I'm going to be out doing these site surveys. I can recommend myself as a service to be able to make more side hustle money off of the main job, and kind of go from there. Now, we did not do that, and part of the reason is because I didn't know what that would look like, how much work, use that would come across. The other reason was because the Kubota mini excavator, I'm brand loyal to Kubota. I've had nothing but excellent experiences with my tractor, and with the local dealer, as far as warranty and service and everything goes. So I wanted to buy a Kubota. It was a 2-year wait on it. Well, that didn't really fit with where we were going, so I didn't do that. And luckily I didn't, because I ended up not doing that anymore. And now I would have this payment that we have to justify. And so that was an idea that we had. It got shut down pretty quick by the excavator not actually being available. So we didn't pursue that, but really, really think about how much money you're spending on it. Now, if your side hustle is, I have a lawnmower and I have a pickup truck and I'm going to go mow some lawns, and that means you need to go buy a couple 5-gallon jerry cans and some weed trimmer line and maybe some different clothes, or have some shirts made, or something like that, and you're going to throw a couple $100 at it, that's sweet. You're going to have to throw money into a side hustle anyway. Just don't go into debt for it. Try to figure out what can I do with what I already have, and that might come down to the old-fashioned have a garage sale. You could donate plasma for a couple weeks to make, a couple $100. There's a lot of things that you can do to get that cash for it. Just please, think very, very long and hard about the ramifications of going into debt for us, especially an unproven new side hustle when you're first getting going. So, we're going a little bit long here today, and I'm pretty excited about this, and I realize I've been talking fast. I'm just trying to get this all out here. So the last thing I want to talk about is the tax benefits. And I am not a CPA. I'm not a tax professional by any stretch of the imagination. This is not tax advice. I am not giving you tax advice right now, period. End of story. I hope this is understood. But there are tax benefits to having a small business. And that small business does not have to be your primary source of income. That small business can be, and typically is for most small businesses in this country, on a side hustle, on something that typically doesn't even bring in much revenue. And so what I'm getting at is, when you go into business, there are certain things that inherently and immediately become tax write-offs. You get mileage reimbursement, like if you use your vehicle during your work and your boss reimburses you at 56 cents a mile or whatever it is. There's an IRS benefit or an IRS set number that you get reimbursed for that. for the driving on your vehicle, as long as it's during business purposes. So if you're mowing lawns, I kind of like that. I kind of have this like hope that one day my older boys will be like, "Hey, Dad, we want to start a lawn care company in the summertime. This is how we want to do it. This is what we want to do," and kind of move forward with that and have their own kind of side hustle thing. And that's why it's kind of top of mind for me. But anyway, I digress. You need to you need some string trimmer line. And you can go to the Ace Hardware and you can buy that string trimmer line. But you also need to go to Home Depot and get some stuff. And Home Depot also has string trimmer line. You're driving there for work, that trip's tax deductible. Your cell phone that you use for your business then becomes a tax deduction. Now, if it's paid for by your employer, that's out. No. Because you need to actually be able to show that you're paying for it. But the vast majority of people don't have that. And if you do have an employer provided cell phone or employer paid for cell phone, most people still have a personal cell phone. So your cell phone bill now becomes a tax write-off. You can have a office in your house that is a dedicated office, and that square footage can be put towards your taxes. Any clothes that you wear, any uniform expenses, really not everything, but most of your uniform expenses for your mowing the lawn, your work boots, your belt, your safety glasses, those Bose headphones that are noise canceling for your hearing protection. But they also play music through them, or those Beats headphones, same thing. That falls under safety equipment. There are so many things that you can't even grasp and comprehend. The tax code was at one point in time 85,000 some odd ish pages. And it boils down to about 5,000 ish pages of you have to pay this, and the rest of it is how you can avoid paying that legally. If you don't have a tax preparing professional, you should get one. Most people, especially if you have a side hustle, can justify that from it. And when you're getting going, you don't have to form a business structure. Really, like, you don't have to go through all these hoops and all this paperwork to get going. You can literally just take that push mower and go to your neighbor's house and mow the lawn, and you make $50 and you can fill out in your tax form at the end of the year that I made $50 there. But you really need to have a separate bank account to run all that stuff through, because then that'll make it really easy to keep track of your income and outgo. And all of those expenses, that your cell phone, all that kind of stuff, you just pay for right out of the business account, because you're using that cell phone number for that business. You go get fuel, and you're driving your truck around because you're pulling a lawnmower. Use that business card, that business account to pay for that fuel. And you keep a log. You keep a written log in the vehicle. They have apps for it now too. But you keep a logbook in your truck, and you put in today's date, your starting odometer, where you went, your ending odometer, and how many miles it was. And at the end of the year, you can keep track. Boom, done. Mileage will catch more people on taxes than a lot of things, though. So make sure that your mileage, that you're counting, is actually used for business expense, and that's there's a lot of different things that fall under that, and you have to make sure that you have that all the mileage logged for what you have written down, because if you're claiming extra mileage, that's going to get you in trouble with taxes, and you don't want to do that. I don't want you to do that. We don't do that. We actually have vehicles that are owned by the business, and those vehicles only are used for business purposes. And then we have personal vehicles, and then we don't have to track that, because that business vehicle that's only used for business purposes has a start odometer reading and an end odometer reading for the year. And like I said, we don't use that for personal use. The only time it's used is for business. Go to Home Depot in the pickup, go get compost, go get fuel for whatever. Most people don't have that ability. We just, in Montana, it just kind of seems the thing that everybody, if you got two drivers in a house, you got at least three vehicles in the driveway type deal. Just really look into that, because you can take, you can take a fairly substantial income, $60,000-$70,000 a year. That's not like gangbusters or anything, but you can take that and you can drop that taxable income down with with approved business deductions. So really, like I said, if you don't have a CPA or tax professional, I really, really recommend finding one. They're worth their weight in gold. If it's a couple $100 to have your taxes prepared, just the conversations that you can have with them while they're doing your taxes will cause you to think about other ways and other things that you can do to benefit from legal and lawful tax deductions. So, this one ran a little bit long, and I did ramble a bunch, but I feel like I got out there what I wanted to get out there. I really can't express enough how much personal power and how much it changes your world when you have a side hustle or a part-time job, or and you build to the point of being self-employed. Folks, I got to tell you, I got up this morning and I did my thing. I was on the internet researching some stuff, trying to find some new products, trying to figure out how the heck to design a website when I'm not a tech guy, but I also don't want to spend $2,500 or $3,000 to have a website built. And I don't have anybody in my immediate community that I can barter with to do that. I know a guy that built my last website, and he does great work, but I really would rather invest $3,000 into the product and the packaging instead of the website, especially to start up and get going. So I did some research on that, and I spent all morning with my son. I, worked on some stuff for the catering company that just hadn't been dealt with and finished yet. And hung out with my son, and then I got to put him down for his nap, and I got to, he's got a twin bed on the floor, so when it comes time for nap time, you go in there and lay down with him, and he falls asleep, and so I got lots of good cuddle time with a toddler that is never ceasing to stop move. He's one that you don't take your eye off him because he'll be in the next county by the time you blink. So I got to spend that time with him. My wife got home from her Thursday job at the church. And we hopped in the car and went down and picked up, some soup bones from the butcher that they had sitting there waiting for me. And we came home, and I'm out here doing my podcast. And I never would be able to do this and say, I made money today. And I did work that gainfully supported my family and supported our mission in life. And I didn't have to leave to do that. And I didn't have to clock into somebody else's schedule. And I got to do the things that I wanted to do. And it's even at self-employment, you're lucky if you get to 20% sucks. It's always going to be at least 20% sucks, and 80% is pretty darn good. But I get to call this my work. And I can't tell you how many times I'm doing something and I just kind of think, oh yeah, I'm planting vegetables in the garden right now that are for us to eat, but they're also for the catering company. They're also for the market garden that we're trying to build. I'm in the dirt, dirt under my fingernails, just enjoying life, planting seeds, building irrigation, and I'm working. That's my job. This is what I do to provide for my family. And folks, I can't explain the feeling that has with it. To get up in the morning, put some clothes on, go outside and work from, 4:30 or 5 o'clock, right as dawn's coming up, until about 7 o'clock in the morning, come inside. My older boys are getting ready to go to school, spend some time with my wife and my son, go back outside. My son's, the 2.5-year-olds follow me around outside. All that just to summarize and say, there is so much freedom in self-employment, and it can all start with a side hustle. And if you don't, like I said before, if you don't have any desire to leave your job, if you've been working the same job for 30 some odd years, you're getting ready to retire, that's great. What are you going to do in retirement? It's not I've never seen anybody in retirement that goes to the beach and does their walkie thing like the Blue Pill commercials do. That just sits around and does nothing and lives this long, luxurious life. I'm gonna tell you, when you retire, and this is from experience of being on a volunteer fire department for 20 years, habitually making it a passion and a drive of mine to make friends with the folks that are at least 15 to 20 years older than me. Not all my friends, but a good chunk of them. And I see folks retire all the time that go from working and having purpose to a fairly sedentary lifestyle and sitting around and just kind of hanging out, because that's what we're told retirement is. And they die within a year and a half. Some of them die within 6 months. That's just the switch flips and it's like you just decide to run out of time. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that might happen. I'm just saying that that's something to kind of keep an eye out for. So if you are going to retire and you have a full pension and everything is paid for and you don't have to worry about it, that side hustle can pay you to do the things that you want to do anyway. You love to garden. You can have a small market garden. You can have a small farm stand. You can have a couple pallets set out at the end of your driveway with some produce on it and stuff. That's a side hustle. You're making money. You're bringing on all the tax benefits from that. So you don't have to leave what you're doing, but it sure opens you up to the ability to do it. And man, it is something that you can't fathom if you've never been here before. And I'm looking forward to the future, and it greatly pushes you towards that abundance mindset, that thinking of how we can do this. And that's one of the core tenements of the show. And it's something that I want to try to talk about, more often, is building those businesses so that we can live the life that we want to. But with that, I'm going to shut it down. I sure appreciate all of your time. Website is still coming soon. I know I keep saying that. It's getting closer and closer to a reality. It's Memorial Day weekend. Let's go into this weekend thinking about what Memorial Day is all about. It's not Veterans Day. It's not Think of Vet Day. It's thinking about those that perished for this country, and that deserves some reverence. It's not just a 3-day weekend or a 4-day weekend from work to go out. So while you're thinking about things and pondering life and pondering the sacrifices of those that have died, ponder how you can maybe do a side hustle. Take that extra day on Monday, spend an hour thinking about that. Maybe maybe you have an idea. Spend an hour with a pen to paper on how you can advance that. And if that's not the case, if you want to do a lawn company and you're looking for a couple lawns, people are home. Drive around, knock on some doors. Hey, don't do it during barbecue time. If you see a bunch of cars parked out there, don't go knocking on that door. You're just going to piss that guy off. But think about it. Take the time that we call free time, downtime, and start putting it to work. So with that, this is AJ Harrison. This is Preparing for Prosperity. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you listening. Shoot me an email, preparingforprosperity@proton.me. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. It's preparing4prosperity. Same thing with the email address, preparing4prosperity @proton.me. And just reach out and let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what your side hustle is. Let me know what your idea is. I want to interact with you folks. I want to know where you're at. I'm looking to put together a mastermind group, especially with some of the folks from the conference we were at that's got me so charged up. But if you're listening to this and you weren't there and you want to be involved, hit me up. I would love to have the conversation with you. But with that, until next time, hashtag do the things. And remember, if you've got to beg, borrow, or barter, just do what you got to do to get the things done. Have a great weekend.